I'm good. Can I get your age?
32.
And are you a Christian?
I am.
All right. And what is your strongest argument for Christianity being true?
I've got a lot. Why, if Christianity is false, what's real?
Um, the world as I see it. Why would
And
Christianity? Why is Christianity required to make the world true? Did reality exist before Christianity existed?
absolutely, Christianity hasn't existed for the entirety of the world.
Oh, and what's your argument that we need Christianity for reality to be real?
I don't have an argument for that. I don't have an argument for that. Why would I? I wouldn't want to argue with that. That sounds a little bit naive of me to even think that that was something to be argued about.
Oh, so why'd you bring up the question?
Well, your stipulation here is Christianity is false.
Yeah,
Well, if Christianity is false, what's real? Do you believe in anything in the New Testament?
no, I believe like so. Let's be clear. So it's not a point. I mean, I can argue it tonight, but I'm a mythicist. I mean, I don't believe that the natural Jesus existed. I don't even believe he's historical. That's not an argument I usually make with this. I can. I believe like Pilate is a background character, but Pilate as a background character is definitely not the same Pilate as historians provide us when like we read Josephus. Josephus gives us a completely different Pilate than the New Testament narrative. I believe John the Baptist existed. So yeah, there's like things that are true in the Bible. I just don't think that the supernatural stuff is real, and I certainly would probably even doubt that Jesus was crucified if he did exist.
You believe in John the Baptist? That's amazing. You believe in John the Baptist and his existence, but you don't believe in Jesus. Like,
Yeah, because we have
why?
historians. We have historians who talk about John the Baptist. Like Josephus talks about John the Baptist close to his time of living. We have so I have reasons to believe that John the Baptist existed. Again, but the John the Baptist that Josephus talks about isn't the same like John the Baptist narrative we get in the New Testament. Did he not know that Josephus talks about John the Baptist? In fact, the early church fathers who mention John the Baptist, or sorry, who mention Josephus, are quoting quoting Josephus because of John the Baptist. They're trying to use Josephus to say, look, John the Baptist existed. Oh, and he ran. He ran. I was expecting him to stick around a bit longer. Did he not know that John the Baptist is mentioned by historians? Gloria Cruz, what do you disagree with? That isn't true. What do you disagree with? I'd love to have you come up and definitely talk with you about it. Harry Legrand, my bar is only using extra biblical sources. I mean, we can use biblical sources, but the issue that you're going to run into is I'm going to just point out where, like, the biblical sources are the claim, and the biblical sources tend to contradict each other, and the biblical sources contradict with what historians tell us. And oh, okay, Ari, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I have reason to believe that the historian account of these people are completely different than the Christian narrative as told in the Bible. And I have reason to believe that the Christian narrative is told in the Bible is coming from a biased source. And I have another reason to believe that these are written in the mid second century. But Harry, you can come on over, click the link. It's going to be tinyurl.com/ cd-guest. Hop on in. I love to chat with you. Love to have a talk with you. Come on up. We can definitely have a discussion. maybe you'll be better than the last guy I debated who was trying to use a source. Um, that was wild. That last guy was wild though. Like, here's an apologetic, but it's, as a matter of fact, Knight, are you able to come up? I want to bring Knight up. I don't know if Knight is able. But if Knight can come up, I would love to have Knight come up. What do I think about the flat Earth in the Bible? Yeah, the Bible. The Bible talks about a flat Earth. Yeah, the Bible makes it clear that they do believe the Earth is flat, and it also makes you believe that the sun revolves around the Earth. Oh, okay. Well, we'll get this account. I think Knight's trying to get followers on this account.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, you trying to get followers on this account?
Well, I got bananaed on my main, so I'm just on here.
What?
They just flagged me for harassment and bullying, so yeah.
I hate TikTok sometimes. Hate it. Yeah,
Agreed.
Were you here for the last guest I had on Video Ninja?
Was it the dude that you just spoke to right now? The dude that ran off?
No, the guy before that.
Was it the kid, the 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I wish I could have stayed, but I had to like do something real quick. But I was gonna ask you what happened at the very end because I was curious about
Oh,
that conversation.
yeah. So he was sitting there trying to talk about like how the Bible's historically accurate. So I bring up, and I only brought it up because he was quoting, Luke being a historian, and I'm like, oh well, if Luke's a historian, we have a problem because there's a few, but the two big issues with Luke is one, it has a conflicting genealogy to Matthew, completely different genealogy. Um, and so I pointed that out to him, and he was like, "Oh, well, Luke goes through Mary's line." And I'm like, "Oh, and what's your reasoning for that?" He's like, "Oh, it's the line for the Levitical priests." And I'm like, "Well, Nathan wasn't a Levitical priest, but sure, let's grant that. How do you draw that? Because Mary's dad was a Levite. He wasn't a Levitical priest. Not all Levites were Levitical priests, but her dad was a Levite. So I'm like, I can see that. And then I went and looked in the genealogy and I was like, oh, look, Mary's dad's not listed here. He's like, oh, well. And to be fair, the Bible doesn't ever say her dad's name. We get her mom's name because her mom was cousins with John the Baptist's mom. So John the Baptist and Jesus were like cousins. But we do have church fathers who give us Mary's dad's name. And I'm like, well, if there's a church tradition, an oral tradition, then I would just go follow that. This is the dad. I have, you know, reasoning to accept that this is her dad. And then he gave me like an apologetic, and I'm like, oh, how does he draw this conclusion? And he's like, oh, because, the curse of Jeconiah, so he says this has to jump to Mary's line. And I was just like, well, yeah, but if it jumps to Mary's line, her dad should be mentioned. And he was like trying to get hung up on that we don't actually know Mary's dad's name. I'm like, but I've got justification to accept this. You're just accepting some guy's opinion on a matter. And it is a little known fact that it is the case that the curse of Jeconiah was removed. Now, we wouldn't accept it as removed or we would consider it a false prophecy, because in Haggai, God says, I'm going to remove the curse, I'm going to make you a signet ring, and you will sit on the throne of David again. But the problem is that the Greek invasion happens, and he never does. And the line of David never sits on the throne of David again. So it would be a failed prophecy, but technically the curse was removed. And And so I'm like, well, right here, though, it just shows me that whoever is doing this apologetic actually didn't study who this guy was, who's in Jesus's line, because he would have known that the curse was removed, which means that Jesus could have sat on the throne through the line of Matthew. Thus, the whole Levite reasoning doesn't make sense. But that was the first point that I was trying to bring up, is just that contradiction. And then I was going to jump to the second issue is, when was Jesus born? Because between Matthew and Luke, there's a 10-year gap between Matthew and Luke when the birth story occurs. And in Luke, King Herod could not have been alive, because Quirinius was governor of Syria, which Judea became a part of, in 6 CE, and Herod passed away in 4 BCE. So there's a 10-year gap there at least. And then outside of that, I was just going to start hitting them with historical events that are mentioned that never happened, like Herod unaliving the children. That's never happened in history. It's not mentioned in history. Josephus hated Herod. Anytime the Herods even sneezed funny, if they woke up with a bad hair day, Josephus wrote about it. And nobody writes about children being unalived.
Yeah, that conversation felt like a middle schooler. Like, think of like the best middle school basketball player on a team going against like Kobe Bryant.
Well, that's not nice to say
There's no
about me.
chance.
Sheesh,
Nah,
I would think I was at least a high school.
nah, come on.
It's just such bad talking points. But that's the big issue with apologetics. The big issue with apologetics is they're all shitty. Every apologetic is a shitty apologetic, and unless you can, like, even me saying, this is Mary's dad, blah, blah, is technically me doing an apologetic, because it's not backed by the Bible. The Bible doesn't back it. It's an apologetic from the church fathers. But even then, I had justification for it. He had none. He had no justification other than, don't trust me, trust him, bro. Just trust him.
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of assumptions on his part, which, like you mentioned, you were able to back up your claims at least. But yeah, he has to refer to "trust me, bro" as a source, and that never really gets us anywhere. But yeah, I was invested for it, and just a little bit. I thought, okay, well, he is 18, and if he's truly honest about his age, he seemed to be a little bit informed, more than like the typical Christian that you speak with on the panels, like the ones that are a lot older. So I can
Yeah.
commend him for that, but I don't think he really has any solid direction, because especially if he's relying on apologetics online instead of the historical sources that we have access to, it's already an
Yeah.
L, but I can commend his bravery.
Yep. And real quick, Adele, thank you so much for the $5 super chat on YouTube. Happy to catch you again. Keep cooking. Adele, thank you so much. I appreciate both you, and if I'm getting this wrong, correct it, and your husband, but we'll leave it at partner. I appreciate the both of you so much. Thank you for supporting the live. Yeah, no, and exactly. Apologetics is much more concerned with a good enough argument. 100%. Like, and that's the issue with the bad apologetics, is they're so concerned about it, it's just good enough. It gets me out of this pinch I'm in. But then you don't realize that you're not getting yourself out of a pinch. You're just either putting yourself into a bigger pinch, or you're making yourself sound like a liar because he couldn't even justify it. And then when I was like, then when I asked him to justify it, he tried to twist it like, oh, now you're shifting the goalpost. Now you're sitting there trying to do blah, blah. I'm like, no, I asked you to justify his position like a half hour ago. Like, where's he get this from? Prince, we're going to invite Prince on up real quick. Prince, I'm sending you an invite. Prince said, at least we Christians have hope, but you don't. I do have hope. I have hope that the world, through atheism, through secularism, we'll get rid of these barbaric practices as found in the Bible. We will eradicate misogyny. We'll eradicate slavery. We will eradicate all these horrible things. And through this, hopefully, we'll be able to get some better world experiences and some actual peace.
Agreed. And I'm just hoping for your Jesus to, open up the monster cans that Cyber brings up on his stream. Like, I just hope one day it will actually happen.
That's what I'm hoping too. Like,
Yeah.
speaking of that, I need to go clip that last one. I gotta go. I need to start a journal. So I used to have a mod, but I think she's taken possibly a permanent hiatus from TikTok, but she had made this awesome spreadsheet on her own. I didn't ask her to. She'd done it on her own. And at the end of every live, she would shoot it to me. And it would have the name of the person and all it was what our topic was, and if they said anything clip worthy, and what time. And if there was something that I was going to clip, I'd something I wanted her to write down specifically, I just put my finger up, and she would know, just a message between us, to go in there and just mark it as a time to mark something down, and then I could go back and clip it. So if you go watch my profile, all those clips I have are from this spreadsheet. But then somebody else who started co-hosting with me before Hanji started doing it permanently, and she essentially started saying, do this, add this, and the spreadsheet just got so overwhelming that Rolly was like, I'm done with it. So I need to talk to Rolly and see if I can get a copy of that and just take it back down to the bare bones. That way then I can start making sure I get these clipped.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good thing for you, man. Oh, yeah.
I did have my first guest up. His whole argument was proof of Christianity, the flood, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Because we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was, hold on. Rock Hard for Doug. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Rock Hard for Doug says humanitarianism is what matters. 100%. Here's the thing that matters to me. What matters to me is we are all human. And there are certain cases where there are people, due to circumstances with things such as colonization, slavery, and other things, that have been set back. So through equity and just being humans and taking a humanitarian approach to things, hopefully we can get to a point where we can legit be able to go, our past was horrible, but we are truly equal. That's what I hope. I want to get to a time. Right now, there's a lot of equity that needs to be done in order to achieve that because of atrocities of the past. But I hope that in the future, it doesn't matter what color you are, what religion, none of that matters. We can actually be equals, looking at each other eye to eye. And that's not the case right now. But religion, especially religions like Christianity, prevent this from happening.
100%. I agree with you on that. Which is unfortunate because Christians want to tell us that they have the remedy or the cure for world peace, and they're supposed to be the lights of the world, and their God called them to live to a higher standard, yet their entire doctrine is literally dividing people and causing pain and suffering in the world, and they don't even realize it half the time.
No, they don't realize it. And if you bring it up, they look at you like you're stupid, and they'll go, but my persecution.
Yeah, it's like the dude from earlier. I think, was it the look at the oxygen dude that was complaining about?
Yeah, look at the oxygen. That's definitely getting clipped too. Look at the oxygen. Like,
Yeah, I think he was just mad that you were talking about Christianity, not Islam. I'm like, bro,
mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Christians have that horrible talking point. I
Have
just
they
don't get it.
have they not heard me talk about Islam? Look, so one thing so with Islam, Islam has some issues, and I don't always like going for the Aisha talking point because one, you can only use that if they accept the hadiths, which the majority of Muslims do accept the hadiths. But if they don't accept the hadiths and you just go running in there and be like Aisha, and they're gonna be like, oh, I don't accept the hadiths. The hadiths are garbage, and then you're like, well, fuck. Because it's only through the hadiths that we know her age. But if they don't accept the hadiths and they believe the hadiths are lies or made up, they're not credible. That so I'll go after things like where does sperm come from, um how many days was the earth created in, was earth created first, was heaven created first, where do humans come from, like how were humans created, because all these are all contradictions. um you can force them to fold themselves into pretzels because you can ask them what's the view on hitting a woman because the Quran says they can, but it can't be nothing bigger than a thumb. It has to be like as big as your thumb. And I'm like, man, if somebody thought they could hit me with something the size of their thumb, I'm probably gonna hit them back. Um, but they get pretty ridiculous with some of these things. But Christians, we are firm believers. As a matter of fact, oh no, what we'll do night is if I get somebody on Video Ninja, I'll see if you want to hop off here and hop on to Video Ninja, because that way then you can hear and hopefully engage in the conversation as well. Because if I do get somebody from Video Ninja, you won't be able to hear them or engage with them. Um,
Yeah, no problem. If you get somebody, I'll just hop off and I'll try to join from there.
Yeah, and then there, and it
Yeah.
gives you the instructions how to do it. I'm only probably going to be live for another half hour. But Christians, there is 168 of you over on YouTube. If you do want to join in the conversation, if you disagree with the topic, go on over. It is tinyurl.com/cd-guest. Go in there. I'd love to have a chat with you. I'd love to chat with you. I want to hear your horrible talking points. I want to be able to tell you why you're wrong. Want to be able to tell. You know what? We ran this one. What's another good one? I'm curious. Something that I'm genuinely curious about. Curious if we get any Christians on this. I'll run this one for like 5 minutes. Let's see if this Mormon one gets us anybody.
Yeah, I love it.
Let me raise that up though. That is super low. So here's what we're going to get with this, right? Because I have a few prophecies that weren't fulfilled, and they're going to be like, that was a mission call. Or there is a case where one of their favorite things to say is that Joseph Smith prophesied of the Civil War 20 years before it happened. The issue is that before he gave that declaration, it was like a week or two before he came up with his prophecy. There was a newspaper that had already. So what had happened is South Carolina had a meeting of like their Senate, and their Senate had agreed that if the southern states were going to separate, they would probably have to start it, and that the other states would follow suit with them. So the idea of South Carolina breaking away first was already in the air. It's already in the air. Politicians of the time had already kind of been thinking that South Carolina will be the first state to break away. So Joseph Smith making the prophecy isn't as amazing as Mormons think it was. And we know through the Joseph Smith papers that Joseph Smith actually changed the prophecy. It just never made it into the text because the text had already been printed. But Joseph Smith had changed it to say that no, South Carolina wasn't going to break away. Great Britain was going to invade and attack South Carolina, and that was going to spark it. And he also, in both forms of the prophecy, had thought that it was going to be essentially the first world war, that Great Britain was going to get involved, that all these other and it was just going to fall into a big world war, which never happened. So we have Oz F over on YouTube. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Good evening. What is the threshold for proof for you to choose a religion? I'm curious to see what your mindset on how you like to live your life. So my threshold for proof for religion. So if we're looking for proof for a religion, I'm just going to need evidence that whoever the leaders of this faith are, that their religion is true. So, I feel like that if we're also going to have a case like with the Abrahamic gods, that they're going to have the triomni properties, we also can't have evil existing because that entails a contradiction. If we're going to look at Christianity, if we have this Jesus was the Messiah, well, I better see some messianic prophecies fulfilled, and I don't see any messianic prophecies fulfilled. When it comes to Judaism, it is the case that first of all, these historical figures had better have actually existed, and a lot of them didn't. And second, it is the case that this God is just a horrible God. He's a disgusting God. And third, again, the history, as we know, it just didn't come true as told. And we find out that the people who wrote the book, especially like Daniel was written during the Greek occupation, but it's written as if it happened before. So the threshold is just the religion needs to do what the religion says it's going to do. And the God better not be a piece of shit. Better not be a POSFF.
I agree. I do have a question that's not necessarily pertaining to the topic on the screen. I did see a comment in the YouTube queue or the channel on your. I was just curious what your thoughts were on this because I've ventured into a little bit of study about psychedelic experiences. But what are your thoughts? Oh, never mind. You actually have a guess. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll save it a little bit. Yeah. Sorry about that.
I'm not friendly, so.
Oh. Okay. Well,
Hi.
I'm only looking for debates, but I do appreciate you coming up. Anyways, what about psychedelics?
Yeah, what are your thoughts about those experiences? Like I know people have seen a bunch of different stuff before, and they've had, different kinds of experiences where they might have encountered like these entities or even Jesus or anything along those lines. Like I've done some research on it, but I'm curious on what your thoughts are regarding that specific case, or those cases rather.
So yeah, I think it's a case of when you're having these, it is the case that if we look at things like today, it is the case where people are told things, right? So before you do a psychedelic, people are going to be told, well, you're going to see blah, 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 blah. And then when they do go on the psychedelics, they're going to have what they're being told because their brain is already in a place where they're going to be expecting it. So their brain chemicals reacts and puts those to motion. I think it's a case too, though, is that when you're on these, your brain is just trying to make sense of what's going on. And I don't know if you ever do this, but you know, like a popcorn ceiling is, right? It's like the ceilings that have all little popcorn thingies on it. It's like really old ceilings. But
Yeah.
I will lay down, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm goofy for doing this, and I might be goofy. I will lay down, but my brain will draw like pictures in those. So I'll be laying there and I'll see like Mickey Mouse and I'll see like different things. It's just my brain making images. Now, are those images actually there? No, it's just my brain connecting the dots. And so I think it's the case that every every religion, every culture has mythology. Every mythology has its monsters and stuff like that. Things that you need to stay away from. They have the things that are, kind of like the boogeyman that's going to come after you. And I think that when you are on these psychedelics, that your eyes see things through a warped perspective, and it does like I do when I'm laying down, and it just tries to connect the dots, and you see things.
Yeah. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't think this is necessarily connected to psychedelics, but it's still a psychologically induced experience. Isn't there some kind of ingredient that was used in like the temple or sometime during when, I guess Judaism was prominent, at least when they had the second temple, or it might have been the first, I don't remember. But isn't there some kind of material or ingredients that they use that uh, could potentially also induce these kinds of experiences?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there was cannabinoids that were used. Yep.
Cannabinoids. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
In fact, so if you go read, and I was actually talking about this. Well, I was in Crystal's live. Crystal was doing a Bible study, and Rabbi Bert actually brought up a good point. So it mentions that the outer skin of the tabernacle was made with dolphin skin. And it's like, well, why? And I was thinking maybe it was for waterproofing, and Rabbi Bert came up and said, or, and hear me out, it could have been for the incense that were burnt in there. And I'm like, oh yeah, they were hotboxing. That's what they were doing. But it makes sense. How you doing, Elise?
Yeah, good. I was just came in and just caught a little bit of your conversation about the whole. You're talking about the psychedelics and stuff like that. I'm kind of interested in that myself. Like, but what are you talking about? What are you trying to? Is this like atheism versus Christianity or whatever, like religious ideology?
Yeah, we're both firm believers that Jesus was a liar and a fraud, and now he's nothing but a carcass. Are you? How old are you?
I'm 39.
Are you a Christian?
No, I'm not. No.
Oh, all right. Goodbye. You're gonna be like, man.
Yeah, maybe he's like one of those Christians that doesn't like the title Christian. You get those sometimes.
Oh yeah, I need to start remembering. Do you believe that Jesus unalived for your sins? All right, I do. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it was somebody that does. So I need to start asking, do you believe Jesus resurrected for your sins? Because then they'll be like, yeah, you're a freaking Christian.
Yeah, some of them just want to escape that label, and I don't get it, but they still believe in like similar Christian doctrine or theology. They just want to escape that label. It's so weird to me, but it's whatever.
Yep. And if you're not already, what I keep forgetting, what's your name over on YouTube?
It's just Night Shift. I'll write in the comments.
There we go. Yeah, go follow Night Shift. He's going to leave it right there. Night Shift. Go give Night Shift a follow. He also posts videos. He doesn't go live on YouTube, but he does post clips over there. Go give him a follow. Oh no, Elise, it said I'm looking for Christian debates. I'll probably only be live for about another 15 minutes though. Also, if you haven't already, go follow Reason and Rebellion. If you haven't followed, as a matter of fact, let me go and actually bring that up over here as well. Get my profile here swapped on over. But go follow Reason and Rebellion. Go follow it on YouTube. Go follow it here on TikTok. That is mine and Jaren's podcast. We'll be going live tomorrow night. I'm going to get this requested up.
This dude said he'd debate you, but it'd take longer than 15 minutes.
Oh yeah. Oh. If you want to debate, I'll stay up longer than 15 minutes. Just if I don't have anybody up within 15 minutes, and I'll drop down. Normally I'm done at midnight. But yeah, come on up, Pastor. I accept it. I sent you an invite. What? Why you? I'm sending you another invite. Come on up. Let's talk about it. Well, it could take longer than 15 minutes. Like, I'm okay with it taking... Like, I'll stay up. Till like 3 in the morning. I just usually am done. Are you going to go live tonight, Night? You should go live.
I'm not going live. I can, but I'm just not. I'm not feeling it tonight, man.
I'll... You're accepting the invite, but it's not allowing you. Pastor, go ahead. What you can do is, if it's not allowing you to accept, because I see the invite. If you're trying to accept, it's not letting you. Go ahead and go into tinyurl.com/cdguest. Type that into your browser. It'll bring you over to Video Ninja, and I'll port you on over, and we'll be able to talk over there.
Or you could also just leave the stream, Pastor, and come back in and try it again. Sometimes that works.
Sometimes that does work. Oh. We got some people over on Video Ninja. If you want to hop on over to Video Ninja, Night.
Yeah, I'll do it. No problem.
All right.
Do you need me to leave this panel right here, or?
You don't have to. Just mute yourself on it. And hold on one moment, Elaine. All right.
Hello?
And how do you pronounce that name? Is it Elaine?
Elian.
Oh, are you there? I am not.
Yep,
Let
it's
me
pronounced
do this.
Elian.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, it's pronounced Elian.
Oh, you... Here, I'm going to
Hello?
drop you. Come right back up. We have a really bad delay. So just come right back up, and I'll bring you back up. Are you there? You there? Hello? Hello. I am not hearing you. Let me try something. You know what? Yeah, I am still not hearing you. Let me try something real quick. Go down here, check properties on things. I renewed the page. Hey, Knight, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Now, I should be able to get to where I can hear Elaine then. Hello, Elaine, are you there? All right. Not able to hear Elaine. Go ahead and bring up Jake. Jake, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, you are super, super quiet. Do you
Can you
have
hear me?
better audio?
No, I'm just in here to call you a Jew who's gonna burn in hell, brother.
Oh, yep. Were you able to hear him, Knight?
Yeah, that was horrible.
That was horrible. I'm like, what the fuck? He's come up a few times. I gotta remember he comes up under a different name. Okay, we'll go and try Elaine again. Ilian, are you there? Okay, I see your fan. Your fan's on. I can't hear you. Let me see what your audio set. You've got a microphone. I still can't hear you. I got nothing.
They look like a fetus.
They do. All right. Well, okay. They came back up. I'm hoping. I always feel bad when they try. Try Ilian. Try coming back on your phone. Try coming back on your phone. I'll probably be able to hear you better that way.
Do you see Jocelyn?
I do. This person. Okay, let's see here. Hey, are you there, Ilian?
Hello.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yep, awesome.
It's
Yep,
super
so-
quiet. It is super, super quiet.
I mean, it's 1:00 in the morning right now, so I mean, I'm a little quiet, but
That's fine. And Knight, can you hear them?
Yes, I can hear them.
And can you hear Knight?
yes,
Okay. And how old are you?
18.
And are you a Christian?
Yes.
All right. What's your strongest argument or evidence that Christianity is true?
On why I believe that Bible and whole and Christianity is true is right. Hello?
Yeah, what's your strongest evidence?
Well, I would just say thinking on the concept of how the Earth came into. Hello?
Yeah. So it's just how the universe came into creation?
I can't hear.
Wait, you can't hear me?
Hello?
Hello? You muted your mic.
Oh. Okay. Am I cutting out?
From time to time you do. Uh-oh.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit hotspot's not working.
Yeah. Man, not only are these Christians having bad apologetics. All right. Well, we'll move on to Jocelyn. Jocelyn's been up on the live before, so I was kind of wanting to get through some other people. How you doing, Jocelyn?
Good. Can you hear me?
Jocelyn. Yeah, let me get your mic sound turned up a little bit. You there?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We talked the other day, correct?
Yeah. 2 nights ago or so.
Yeah.
So first, I'd like to talk about. Have you noticed oxygen before?
Yes. Fun fact though is I'm Jewish and I'm not convinced we need oxygen. That's a lie. We need oxygen. But yes, I've seen oxygen.
All right. Well, as long as you've seen oxygen, then you've seen God. I mean, that was the premise of the first guy that I watched.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so I was an aircraft firefighter, and
No way.
so I've actually seen what's called NOx, or sorry, LOX, not NOx, LOX, liquid oxygen. I've seen liquid oxygen. It's blue. It's used for fighting fire.
That's actually kind of cool. So, so probably the strongest argument that I would have is kind of comes from the point of Acts in the Bible when all of the disciples were persecuted and all this kinds of stuff. And my kind of title would be people have died in the past for a lie that they did not know was a lie, but if they knew that something was true and they died for that, then that would establish that it is true.
All right, let me ask you a quick question, a follow-up question on
Yeah.
that. So, outside of about 6 years in the 4th century, right before Constantine, what evidence do you have that there was actual Christian persecution other than being punished for breaking a law that pre-existed Christianity?
Yeah, so a lot of my claims would come straight from the Bible, but there is one that we can skip all the way down to, and that would be Josephus. Josephus actually recorded the death of James, the brother of Jesus, who in the scriptures he actually did not believe, because in I believe it's recorded in Mark that his family actually came after Jesus because they said that he was out of his mind. And so Josephus actually records in his writings that he was killed for an alleged law breaking, but when you see the reaction of everybody else, he was actually dethroned shortly after that. So then what kind of occurs in my mind is that not only did the people around him did not grant him that James deserved to be dead, to be killed by stoned, but then those who were above him disagreed with him too because he was dethroned shortly after that. And so
So
what that
here's
tells
so
me, oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So my question is one, how many different narrative stories do we have in Christian tradition for how James was unalived?
So what I'm aware of, there's only about a handful of them going into the early church fathers. However, you don't really, I mean, already establishing this, you don't really trust those resources. So I'm jumping straight into a trusted resource that you actually like to quote, and that's
Yep.
Josephus. So
Now,
Josephus,
well,
I'm actually just relying on something outside of the Bible to
yep.
cite this death, and so I'm going to trust Josephus because we can agree is a reliable source on anything that happened in the earlier time period. We can take
Except,
all of those
hold,
early church fathers and just toss them to the side. That's fine. And I'm
yep.
just going
Well,
to rely
hold on.
solely on this
So,
resource because you trust him and I trust him.
so the issue that we run into with this is, so when, and I'll just read it. I have it brought up. So it's in
I got it too.
Antiquities of the Jews, book 22, chapter 9, and it's found in section 1. And so what we have, first of all, is you're right. We have a James who was unalived. And the Jewish people aren't happy with this. They're not happy. The Sanhedrin, nobody's happy about this.
Correct.
But now the first question that we have to ask, is, you preface this with Christian persecution. So if there is like this Christian persecution going on,
one of them.
yeah. So why
And that's
would it?
through the reaction of those who are around him, that there has to be, in this moment, there has to be a bias against James because he's acting whatever law he broke, the punishment for it went too far. And even those who were above him, the king of Agrippa, actually said, yeah, this is also terrible. So he got dethroned shortly after this happening. So what happens here is we see through this reliable source is that James, who it even says that is the brother of Jesus, who is called
Well, hold on.
Christ,
Let me finish.
was
You're jumping.
murdered.
You're jumping ahead of my point.
Sorry,
You're jumping
I
ahead
wanna
of my
say,
point.
crush.
Hold on. You're trying
Yeah.
to presuppose my argument, and you're answering a question that I didn't ask. So the question
Okay,
that
go
I'm
ahead.
asking is, if there is this persecution going on by these Christians, or against Christians,
Mhm.
why is it that the Jews would even care about it? Why would the Jewish people even care
So this is
if they're
I'm
viewed
not,
as heretics?
okay, so maybe you're trying to answer a question that I'm not asking. I'm not pushing towards
You didn't ask a question. You
the
made a
whole
statement.
story. Right.
You
So
didn't
I'm
ask
not
a
pushing
question. You made a
towards
statement.
I'm not pushing towards the whole narrative of the persecution in the first century. I'm just talking solely on this story of James being unalived by this king who claimed that he broke a law and he
Hold on. The king
unalived
didn't
him.
have him
And then
unalived. The king didn't have him unalived. Who had him
you're right.
unalived?
Ananus, I
Wait,
can't say
who
that
had
name
him
right.
unalived? That's
Ananus.
important. Who had him unalived?
Ananus. I can't say his name right.
Ananis ben
was
Ananis ben
of the
Ananis. Yes.
was this disposition. He thought that now proper opportunity to exercise his authority. Festus, now unalived, and Albinus was put on the road. So he assembled the Sanhedrin of judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who is called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, or some of his companions. And when he had formed an accusation, an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned, to be unalived, my bad. But as for those who seemed most equitable of citizens, and such were the most uneasy at the breach of laws, they disliked what was done, and they also sent to King Agrippa, desiring him to send Ananus,
Yep.
that he should act so no more. So the people there believed that he might have breached certain laws. We don't know what law that he claimed, because it seems, according to this, that he had formed an accusation. So Josephus is not even saying that he could even say that this could be even called into question that he did do this. He's saying it seems like he formed this accusation.
So hold on. So
then
hold on. Listen.
Demanded this man to be
Hold on. So even according to this, right? Even according to this, so it says that he is being punished because he was accused of breaking the law, which means that they formed the Sanhedrin because the Sanhedrin were the judges, and then they had them unalived, right? So it's not persecution. He was being unalived for a law that he was being accused of breaking. Now, it doesn't mention what that law is, but this isn't persecution.
Correct.
Again, this is a breaking of a law that he is being unalived for. It's not persecution.
So this breaking of the law, most of them would say, like, yes, if he was in charge, if he did this law, yes, he is deserving of punishment. However, if you continue down, it says, but as for those who seemed the most equitable of citizens, the most pious, the right standing of citizens, lost my place, and such.
Yeah, they disliked what was
were most
done.
uneasy at the breach of the laws. They disliked what was done, meaning what Ananus did, not the laws that were breached, but what he did to breach those laws. Because here's my argumentation, is that if it was just the laws that breached that James committed, then they wouldn't be desiring him to be removed, and then they would come back and say, yes, he's removed. So it's something that he overstepped. So therefore,
Yeah.
It's
Are
what
you familiar with the? Hold on. Are you familiar with the?
against,
Well, hold on. So this is written in 61.
which would be
Well, hold on.
unjustly.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, let's say you broke the law, and let's say you just got caught shoplifting at Walmart, right? And let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say you got shoplifted.
Time out. Hold on. We don't know what this law is.
Well,
Correct?
no.
We
I'm just.
We don't know if it's a civil law. We don't know if he just didn't worship the Roman rulers at the right time. We don't know.
Well, hold on. Quit. You're trying to guess where I'm going
of.
here. Quit trying to guess. I don't want to mute you.
Well, I'm not
so
guessing.
let me finish.
I'm not guessing.
Yeah, so
I'm
what
not
I'm
guessing
saying
this,
is
he didn't
they're
steal.
they're not upset with him being punished for breaking the law. They're upset for what the punishment was. They didn't
Correct.
they thought that him being stoned was an overstep. So for example, if you were accused of, let's say, shoplifting $10,000. Let's say you got caught frauding somebody out of $10,000, and a judge decided to have you unalived. I would also seek to have you, or not you, but to have that judge removed from office. I think that is overstepping boundaries, right? So this isn't a case of them being mad that he was punished. They're upset at what the punishment was, right?
Yeah, so
So-
this goes into my argumentation that the judge seems biased against James. And so the only biases that we can have is that either he is Jewish or that he's a Christian. So he's either being punished for being a Jewish or being Jew or being a Christian, which I'm going to make the
Wait,
argument.
or he broke
because
another
said that he
law,
was called Christ.
or he
That's
broke
not-
another
that's
law.
not-
What?
That's not claimed.
Hold
in
on.
here.
What time
He said he
period is
brought
this?
up one.
Hold on.
what
What
time
time period is
First
this?
century.
What time period is this?
First century.
Well, it tells you if you go right next to the one, it tells you what year it is.
We don't have the same resource up. Go
It's
ahead
in
and tell me.
61. It's in 61. So this is right before
Okay.
the Jewish-Roman War, right? So this is
So-
right before, right before the Jewish-Roman War, right? So when you're just trying to posit that it had to be because he's Christian or Jewish, it doesn't have to be any of those. He quite literally could have broken any law. It could be the case he did some things that upset Rome. Like there's a plethora of things. So you're trying to posit that it had to be because of Christianity, but you have nothing to back that up. It doesn't have to be.
No, my argumentation is just simply a bias. So
Jocelyn,
it's just a bias against. It's not saying that he did this extra or he's this. I'm just saying there is a bias against James. So it's kind of like being an unbiased judge. We can both agree that in this instance, that because of the reaction of the crowd and the reaction from the people above him in leadership, that he was biased in his handing down judgment on James.
Does
Now,
that why do you
bias
automatic
comes
hold
from
on? Why do
Rome.
you automatically assume that had to be because he was Christian? What if it
Oh,
is
no,
the
it
case
has
that
nothing to do with that.
then why are you implying bias and James is a Christian then? This doesn't
No,
prove
I'm saying
Christianity is true.
No. I'm just saying that this judge here is biased against James. How does that bias go against him? Honestly, I couldn't tell you what that bias.
Hold on,
would
what
be,
argument are
but
you?
in
Hold
this
on,
instance-
let's go back to the topic. Let's go back to the topic, right? The topic is Jesus was a liar and a fraud. Now he's nothing but a carcass. And you said your strongest evidence is that people don't die for false beliefs. And I asked you for evidence of this persecution, and you brought James, and now you're saying, well, this may not have been because he was Christian, because I asked you that directly, and you said, no, I'm not
according to
saying
this
it's because
resource.
he was Christian. This is just showing that somebody had a bias against him. So how is
This
this
is-
evidence for persecution for being Christian?
So this is according to this resource. So we agree that Josephus is like an outstanding historian. Would you agree with that?
Kinda in some cases. I mean,
Trustworthy?
well, Josephus
Or would you
did
say he's
believe
not
Hercules.
trustworthy?
Well, hold on. Josephus did believe that Hercules existed. You know that, right?
I mean, I don't know much about Josephus, to be honest.
Yeah, so Josephus writes, but let's go into this text, right? So one of the arguments against this text is And it's something that a lot of historians actually kind of back up. When it says, and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, historians argue when it says who was called Christ, was that a marginal note? Was it like who was called Christ ? And then because manuscripts are copied by hand, that over time the question mark was probably erased. But if you go down 4 sentences, you'll learn that this Jesus they're talking about and made Jesus the son of Damnius high priest. So now we're having this Jesus being made the high priest, and he's the son of Damnius. And so given what we do know, what the church tradition is with James, I'm not being able to agree. Was he stoned? We have the story where he was stoned. We have another story where he fell off a wall, and that was enough. We have another one where he fell off a wall, and that wasn't enough, so they hit him with a stick until he died. So they can agree. But again, we have the brother of Jesus, and again, that who was called Christ, that's believed to potentially have been a marginal note that was later just added into the text. But again, 4 sentences later,
you can't prove
they
that.
say,
You can't prove it. It's just argumented. It's not a solid foundation that's what that means.
Oh, I agree. It's not a solid foundation, but it's something that
Right.
that historians today still can't agree on. But then again, we have down here at the bottom, and made Jesus the son of Damnius high priest. Now, the people are upset.
Now, hold on. Time out. Now, made Jesus the son of whoever. So, is your argument that this is the same Jesus who was called Christ?
Correct. What does Christ mean in? Hold on. What does Christ
Jesus.
mean? What does Christ mean?
He made a different person who was named Jesus. Yeshua in the first century was a common name.
Yeah, I agree. But what does
I can argue that that's not the same Yeshua.
Are you familiar with how
You can't
Josephus
prove
writes?
that it was.
Are you familiar with how Josephus writes?
I mean, inform me, as if I
Yeah.
don't.
So what Josephus will do when he writes with characters, so we have a case where the brother of Jesus, who is called Christ, that he's not the subject. The subject of this sentence is James. James is the subject. So we have a case where he's mentioning this Jesus who's called Christ. Now, what historians will say when they look at this is one side of the argument, and it's a side that I tend to believe in, knowing how Josephus writes. So we have where James is unjustly killed. The punishment, they're not mad that he's being punished. The punishment just didn't fit the crime, right? And so if you remember, Ananus ben Ananus gets removed from the high priesthood. He's removed. And Jesus, the son of Damnius, is made high priest. Now, one thing that we do know that Agrippa liked to do was embarrass people. And one way that people would be embarrassed is by saying, you're the high priest and you did this horrible thing to this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking you off the high priest. You're not the high priest anymore. His brother, his family is going to be high priest. Now, with that said, let's say I agree with you. Just for this sake, let's say I agree that the who is called Christ, let's say that's in there. This fits with exactly how Josephus might write, where, keep in mind, Christ is the Greek word for anointed, which refers to Messiah. Priests were anointed. So we have a case where the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, who was the high priest, but he's not the subject of this, so they're just glossing over it real fast. And then down we see where he is being made the high priest, right? And this is an argument that historians today argue. So I just don't think this is a good piece. This is a good argument for proof of Jesus, especially since it flies against Christian tradition for how James died.
So,
Also,
according to this
Jocelyn,
source,
Oh,
the high
hold
priest
on.
must
Dark
be
Knight has a
under
question for you.
Jocelyn, Jocelyn, even if we granted that early Christian persecution happened in the same period of time that you're referring to,
Yeah.
my question to you would be, if we can find another religion where people were being persecuted for what they believed to be true and they were willing to unalive for that very reason, would it make that religion true?
Yeah, that's a good question. Specifically, the way that I would answer that is for specifically what they believed they saw.
Yes. So if they believe they saw something divine or supernatural and they were willing to lay down their life for it, would it make their religion true?
Yes, it would, because this is not so. The areas that you could go in is that they have mass hysteria where they're all having hallucinations about this same incident that's happening, or you have to convince that to psychologists, or you have to believe in the historical. Here's a good historical example of possibly a mass hallucination, but doesn't really work. It's the dancing plague of 1518, where groups of people reportedly danced uncontrollably for days. Now, the problem with that is that if all of these people, all of the disciples, had the same hallucination, that is not proven anywhere in science or psychology.
Okay, but I don't think you're really addressing the point that I brought up. So to be more
Okay.
specific, there have been Muslims who have been willing to lay down their lives for what they believe to be true. One of the earliest Muslim martyrs was a woman who was being persecuted and tortured for her faith, along with her children and her husband. They were beaten, they were forced to wear heavy armor, they were tied to trees, and many people witnessed their suffering. And they were willing to endure it because they believed that they had the truth. So by default, then you also have to accept that Islam is true. So why are you not a Muslim?
Well,
And why are
pause.
you a Christian?
What did that first lady believe in? Did she believe that Allah was true, or did she believe she saw Allah
She
resurrect?
believed in Islam.
Oh, just a basic belief in Islam? Because I have it on authority here in Acts 12, 1 through 3. Brother Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, or some of his companions, and when he had formed the accusation against them, just above that. About that time, King Herod laid a violent hand to come upon the church. He killed lost this. Hold on just a sec. Let me get up to it. Okay. So in Acts 2:29, brothers, I may say to you with confidence about the patriarch David that he both died and was buried, and his tomb was with us to this day. Being therefore a prophet, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him that he would set one of his descendants on his throne, he foresaw and spoke about the resurrection of the Christ, that he was not abandoned to Hades, nor his flesh see corruption. Now, this is the truth that they died for. This
So,
Jesus God raised up, and and that we are all witnesses, being therefore exalted at the right hand of God, and having received from the Father the premise of the Holy Spirit, he poured out to this day, that you yourselves are seeing and hearing. For David did not ascend to the heavens, but he himself did. So that's
hold
what
on.
they are
Question
being
then.
martyred for, is that they
So
actually
hold.
physically. Hold on, let me finish my point real quick. So they actually believe that they physically saw Jesus.
We don't
raised
need you to
from the
finish your
dead.
point respectfully. We've heard these talking points, and I'm so sorry. So I just wanted to cut them off. We've heard these talking points so many times, man. Trust me.
So question I have then. So if somebody sees a resurrected individual and they follow that person and they get unalived, that's justification for that resurrected individual to have existed or for that event to have happened.
So this is a group exercise. They said we are witnesses. So they all
Okay,
have
so
to
what
come into
about
agreement that
hold on,
they
hold
saw.
on. Yeah.
Not just
So
one.
what
All
about
of
hold
them.
hold on. So what about the 63,000 Parthians who followed, who they believed to be the resurrected Nero to war against the Romans? They got their shit kicked in, but they absolutely thought Nero was resurrected. In fact, this resurrection thing seemed to be such a big problem that Rome actually had to start, like, if you even looked like Nero, like it was a bad day for you. If you look like Nero, you were going to the chopping block, because it follow during antiquity, the idea of people coming back as it wasn't new. And literally a clone of Nero. It wasn't the real resurrected Nero. It was a clone. Somebody who looked like him, was a lookalike. But 63,000 troops followed this person to war against Rome, thinking they were going to be victorious because he claimed to be resurrected and he claimed to be deified as a result, and they got their shit kicked in. So like the idea of like following a resurrected being just it doesn't work. It doesn't follow, because 63,000 trumps 500.
I mean, I guess if you want to say that, but my final point would be that James, the brother of Jesus, who, again, his family early on said that Jesus was insane, he was crazy, didn't really even know him. This brother was actually among the disciples that first saw him raised again from the dead. So my question would be then, if this Jesus is some other culprit, then he duped his brother that he knew from when he was a child.
Yeah, I think the scriptures
and even
give
talked
us
the same way, and even acted the same way, even had the same holes in his hands and the same spear hole in his side. So in order for
Well,
this
that's
whole
if
entire
hold on. That's
mimic
presupposing.
mirroring
Hold on.
thing
Hold on.
to
Hold on.
be
That's
accurate.
presupposing. That's presupposing the Gospels are true, right? Because we always, we always talk about, like, one of the criteria of belief is like the embarrassment criteria, right? Is the idea that Jesus went through this embarrassment, right? But the issue with that is there's a Greek god who literally had his penis ripped off, and he was still worshipped. Literally had his penis ripped off, and he's still worshipped, right? I can't think of anything more embarrassing. But though it could be the case that, because again, as you and I believe we talked about stellometry a little bit. We might not have, but with stellometry, we see that these texts are probably written in the mid-2nd century through stellometry. It could be the case that some of these Christians, especially like if we're going to go with saying that these people existed, that maybe they realized they were following a false person and they had a criterion of embarrassment. So in order to justify themselves, they're like, oh yeah, Thomas, who was doubting, he saw and touched the holes, the wounds. He saw and touched them, right? So that could also be the case.
Yeah. Also,
So
I think I just want to piggyback off of what Cyber said just for a second too, Jocelyn. And I think he hit the hammer straight down on the nail. You are presupposing that the scripture is true. We are skeptics. We don't accept that the scripture is true. Your responsibility is to demonstrate the validity of the claims that are found within the scripture. And in order for us to really believe you, you would have to give us some sort of demonstration for us to accept as valid for any of the stuff you're talking about.
I'm just going to set up a couple of assumptions. Since this is historical context, we're not talking about a science experiment, correct?
Well, so
we're not
I can
about,
grant
here's
you
the manuscript. Let me get my science kit out and let me.
Well, hold on.
test
I
the
can
ink
grant
on it.
you for this argument that a historical Jesus existed. I can grant that for this argument. But what you would then have to do is just give me the evidence that the supernatural stuff happened. You just have to give me the evidence of that.
So my evidence is that somebody who was a doubter, not doubting Thomas, throw him to the side, but his brother that knew him from when he was a kid, knew him for many years, even was a skeptic of Jesus, was there with among the 12, this James, the brother of Jesus Christ, whom Josephus wrote about. This doubter now was willing to die for it, was willing to die for what he saw. Now,
Wait, how do
if you want to
how
get
do you
into
know his
scripture,
brother? How do you know his brother's with the 12?
because it says it in Corinthians. But if you want me
Okay,
to
so you're
establish
going
that
no,
Christian,
hold on.
I can
So you're
establish
going
scripture
hold on,
is
Jocelyn. So you're going back
trustworthy.
to the Bible. So you're going back to the Bible and using it as a source to prove that the Bible is true, right? We're
Correct.
not
So I
asking you
can
to use the
establish that
Bible
it
to
is
prove the
trustworthy.
resurrection. Do you have
I,
any sort of other form of evidence outside of the scripture that you can use to prove the supernatural things that happened in the Bible?
so again, I'm going to go back to this is not a science experiment, correct? Like I can't scientifically
So
prove that the
is that a
resurrection happened.
no? You can just
I
say you
can't
can't
prove.
do it.
No, I can't prove in a science experiment that the resurrection happened. If you want a science experiment, you're going to have to go back 2,000 years. Because that's not how this works.
Did I ask you for a science experiment?
No, you asked for a proof, and I gave you a proof through logically that when somebody is a skeptic
Well,
and
no,
they
but
see
you're
that Christ is raised from the
presupposing.
dead,
Well, but you're
if you want me to establish
presupposing.
scripture being trustworthy, I can do that now.
Well, but there's a couple things that you're presupposing, right? So you're presupposing that Josephus is writing about this Jesus, right? But it could be the case that he's right, that this James isn't the same James, because again, the story doesn't agree with other stories in Christian tradition. So if you accept this story from Josephus, you're denying Christian tradition. Second, it could be the case that this Jesus is just the son of Damnius and he's becoming the high priest. And Josephus, when he mentions him briefly before, he's doing what he does in a lot of his other writing. He gives him a quick introduction, mentioning he is called Christ, because later on when he introduces him as Jesus, the son of Damnius, the high priest, keep in mind, Christ means anointed, high priests were anointed, that it's just saying, oh, this Jesus, yeah, he mentioned him before. Because that's how Josephus writes. Like, go read Josephus, and you'll see that when Josephus refers back to somebody, he usually leaves a little tag about them. And then when he goes back, he'll mention something kind of in reference to that tag.
So even against your own argumentation, that doesn't really make sense, because before it says he was called Christ. So he's called the high priest, and then he's not the high priest, and he comes back as the high priest. And also, there's no historical evidence that that there were any other brothers of Damnius that are called James, or even any other brothers like that. So, I mean, this is from an argumentation of lacking, of absence, which is not very strong, because I could also say that it's not that. It is talking
well, no,
about
it's
Jesus
not
Christ.
lacking of evidence, because we have
No, it is.
other sources. There's other sources that you would accept that also say that he fell off a wall and was unalived, and he was beat with a stick and he unalived. Right? The Christian sources don't agree. That is the problem that you run into, is they don't agree how he passed away. And when we say that, when it mentions he was called Christ, right? You gotta remember, this is being written in the past tense. It's already happened. So when we're mentioning this Jesus who was called Christ, that's a reference to when he's going to call him the high priest, son of Damnius, right? It's literally, like quite literally, like how Josephus writes. Like, go read Josephus, and you will see that that's literally how he writes. His writing, he does weird verbiages like that, like quite literally.
So in my argumentation, it still lands that I could say that that's still Jesus, the Christ, the anointed one whom was crucified. Because you can't prove that with a certainty or without a doubt. Because he doesn't also reference this new Jesus, who's the high priest, as what was called Christ. He doesn't continue that language.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's how Josephus writes. That's why you need to go read Josephus.
Can you point to another time where Josephus calls another high priest Christ?
No, because he's not. He doesn't. This is the only time
Oh.
he's talking about high priests. This is it because
Oh.
he's talking about because in this the whole purpose of this story. Do you know what the purpose
very
of this
weak
story
argument.
is? Hold on. Do you know what the purpose of this story is? Do you think the purpose of this story is to talk about? Hold on. Do you think the purpose of this story is to talk about Jesus or James being stoned, or do you think the purpose of this story is to talk about why Ananus ben Ananus was removed from the high priesthoodship? What's the purpose of the story?
So I think through the story that he's talking about, he is talking about what happened to this Ananias.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of it.
This argument doesn't take away from the fact that this could be Jesus the Christ, especially when you can't even offer any evidence that later on he talks about another priest who was Christ.
No, but what I can do is reference how Josephus refers to people. But what I can what I can do though is talk about how Josephus. What I can do though is talk about how Josephus talks.
Now, is that true every time or not at all?
Huh?
So in all of his writings that he's done many, is it all that same way? Does he always talk about this and then he jumps back to it previously? Or is it kind of flowing?
Yeah, anytime if there's characters that he's going to be mentioning like multiple times, right? He'll bring them up.
Does he mention this priest multiple times?
Which priest?
The last one. Jesus son of Darkus.
No, Jesus son of Damnius isn't mentioned again.
Damn. Oh, okay. So I don't really buy that
because the story isn't about Jesus son of Damnius. He's a side character in it. The whole story, like even if you read beyond it, the whole purpose of the story is to talk about why Ananus ben Ananus was removed as the high priest, right?
So then you have to
But let's say though, hold on, let's say though,
argue is that this Jesus of Damnius has a brother named James.
Jocelyn, let's just say we granted this to you, but let's just say it was referring to Jesus Christ that we find in the New Testament. How does that get us to Jesus performed miracles, Jesus resurrected from the dead, any of that?
Oh, I'm not arguing any of that.
Well, that's what we asked you about.
No, I'm not.
Cyber asked you for some kind of. He wanted you to give evidence for the supernatural found within Scripture, and this is what you ran to.
That's not correct. The argument.
That's not correct. That's not what Cyber said.
Jesus Christ proved that Christ really died on the cross and rose again from the dead. My argumentation is that many of the witnesses that saw that believed in that and trust that, including James, who was a skeptic from before, a trusted skeptic, actually did start believing in Jesus. Now, I'm not going to believe my brother if he ever was saying that he is Jesus, the Son of the living God, until he resurrected again. If you resurrected today, I would strongly believe in what you had to say. Now, this skeptic alone is a strong argument for the fact that the resurrection happened, because the claim that the early apostles were making is not that they just believe in this new way. They believed that they saw Jesus in the flesh resurrected from the dead.
Sure, cool story, bro. But Jocelyn, now we have a problem, Jocelyn.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, cool story, bro.
You won't even allow me to establish the scriptures as
we know the story. We've heard the story 100 times. I promise you're not saying anything new that we haven't heard. But listen, so when it comes to this specific instance, right? When I look at these claims that we find within Scripture, I try to find the most natural explanation, because I think it's more plausible than the supernatural, since you haven't given us a demonstration that the supernatural exists. And so I could easily just say, well, hold on,
You're
Jocelyn,
saying that I need to establish
stop talking.
You're
So
moving the goalposts.
I can easily just say, well, there was a man that looked just like Jesus, and he was a clone of Jesus, like what Cyber mentioned earlier about the person. I think it was Caesar. Who was it? I'm so sorry, Cyber. What was the name of the person I referred to earlier? The dude that had a copy, a doppelganger.
Oh, Nero, Emperor Nero.
Nero, yeah, Nero. I can make the same claim about Jesus. I can say there was a clone of Jesus, a man that looked just like him, a guy who pretended to be the resurrected Jesus, and that would still be more plausible than a resurrected man who was crucified on a cross, because you haven't demonstrated the supernatural to exist. So until you demonstrate the supernatural, none of this shit even matters.
So again, I think you're kind of going off basis because I
Actually,
said this is
we
proven
actually
through a
hold on.
historical
We have a
accuracy and
case.
not a
We actually
science
have a hold on.
experiment.
Hold on. We actually have a
If you want a
case right
science
in.
experiment,
Well, hold
I
on. We
can't help
actually
you.
have a case. Hold on. We actually have a case in this very story. So we just read where Ananus ben Ananus is removed from office, and we have and made Jesus the son of Damnius high priest. But right after that, we have now, as soon as Albius was come to the city of Jerusalem, he used all his endeavors and care for the care that the country might be kept in peace, and by this destroying many of the Sicarii. But as for the high priest Ananias, so he's no longer high priest. But what's he doing here? Josephus is doing exactly what I told you. He's still referring to him as the high priest, even though he's not the high priest anymore, right? So, again, this is that type of writing that I've told you that Josephus does, right? And increased in glory every day, and to this great degree had obtained the favor and esteem of the citizens in a signal manner, for he was a great hoarder up of money, and therefore cultivated the friendship of Albius and of the high priest by making them presents. He also had servants or wicked. So this is a case where, again, he's no longer the high priest. He's been removed, and now he is, but Josephus is still referring to him as the high priest, right? But he's not high priest anymore. But he's still referring to him as such. This is how Josephus writes. So, for him to mention that this Jesus is called Christ, right? For him to refer to him as that makes sense. It's Josephus's writing. It's how he writes.
So again, you need to establish that this new Jesus that we're talking about has a brother named James.
Oh, why do I have to establish that?
Great question. So if we're establishing that the Jesus who is called Christ, whose brother was James that was killed unalived, for a crime that he committed, you need to now establish that this same Jesus had a brother named James from Damnius. Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah, because it mentions that he has a brother named James just above. So if it is the same Jesus...
No. You have to establish outside of Josephus, or even a little bit lower on Josephus's own text, that this is the same Jesus who had a brother named James. Go through any historical document. This is a great Roman period, so I guarantee there's a lineage somewhere of Damnius who had a brother named James who was unalived by this other ruler.
Oh, yeah, I would just say that scholars accept that it is the case that, and I'll just read this, Ananus ben Ananus was persecuting his rival, Jesus, son of Damnius, for office by attacking his brother, and the authorities achieved justice by punishing Ananus and redressing his offense by giving the office to his enemy, the very man whose brother he had killed.
So can you give me that resource, like, that I can read?
It's
my
Richard
own?
Carrier.
Oh, Richard Carrier. Okay, so I would say that that's biased.
Oh, hold on.
He's
So
reading your
I
same
may.
bias into the text. So if we're going to take two worldviews opposing on this same verbiage, Jesus who is called Christ, then I could just argue the same thing, that this is Jesus from the Bible. Because there's no, what I'm saying is there is no text outside of this that makes a claim that this same Jesus is not also is the Christ who is Damnius, the son of Damnius. There's no, other than Josephus, who arguably doesn't even like Rome. So I don't really understand how someone who doesn't like Rome doesn't also write that this is the Roman brother named James.
Oh, hold on. I'm reading.
That would be
Hold on.
explicitly written in the sky. Because I mean, wouldn't you say, look how jacked up Rome is? This guy killed his brother, and now his brother is the king.
Oh, yeah. So we'll just go to Josephus, War of the Jews, chapter 6, or book 6, chapter 5, where it's talking about, but there was one, Jesus. I want to see if it mentions. I want to see if it mentions a James in here real quick. Let's see. Jesus, Ananias, the plebeian and husbandman, who 4 years before the war began, at the time the city was very great and prosperous, came to the feast whereon this custom for every one to make tabernacles of God and temple began on the sudden crowd. A voice from the east, west. However, man gave great number of sort of stripes. He did not enter for them, particularly those who chastised him when the same tree cried.
To be honest, at this point, I'm really just interested.
Potential contender for the brother G. More of that damn ass seems to be enough. see. Yeah, so it doesn't mention any other brother of James. But again, though, the onus is just going to be on you to say that James is also a common name as well.
James is a common name as well. What do you mean?
Well, if you're going to argue that Yeshua is a common name, James is a common name as well. Like, but what we do have though is historians, and all you have is text that I can argue that I have evidence is written in the mid-2nd century.
Yeah.
And I can, again, we just showed you how Josephus writes. And based off of how Josephus writes, I am justified in believing that the Jesus mentioned above is the same Jesus mentioned below.
Cool story, bro. But
That's
I only know
how
one
Josephus
Jesus who had a
writes.
brother named James. So I'm
I
gonna
don't have
believe
to
that this
hold
is
on.
James in the Bible who
I don't
died
have to
for his
prove he
faith.
has a
So
brother named James. That's just a
gonna-
horrible apologetic.
You can believe what you believe. I'm gonna believe what I believe. I believe this is James, the brother of Jesus, who was martyred for his faith.
Yeah, and you didn't
And
give
in
us any
conclusion,
substance.
I believe that Jesus is the real Christ who died on the
Okay,
cross, rose again from the dead, and
Jocelyn,
James died
in
for
conclusion,
believing
you
in that.
didn't give
Have
us
a good
any substance. All you did was just give us something that you believed in,
He
and you
just
couldn't prove
dropped. He
shit, and
just
you ran
dropped
away.
himself. He literally just
Yeah.
dropped. Yeah, he didn't want
You
to give
just-
any evidence though. All right, let's
Yeah.
go over here to Kay. We'll go ahead and bring Kay on up. You there, Kay? Kay. All right, we're going to move on from Kay. We'll go up ahead and bring up Chris. Chris, you there?
How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yourself?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
I was going to bed and I heard, so is your argument that Jesus didn't exist or God wasn't real? I'm kind of confused. What's the context of the subject?
Oh, yeah, so we're a believer that Jesus was a liar and a fraud, and now he's nothing but a carcass.
Oh, my. Okay. I'm just going to start with this because from the arguments I've been hearing, I'm sorry, I'm not the most technologically savage person, guys. Okay. That's number one.
Well, the question that I'll ask you is, are you a Christian?
Yeah, but not your conventional Christian.
That's fine. Do you believe that Jesus died and was resurrected for your sins?
I don't know if he was. I know he died for my sins. Who knows? I mean, context gets pulled so many different directions when man start writing things down, as we know, just in our shorter history period, going from Civil War, World War I, World War II. I mean, you could talk to my grandpa and other old men that went to World War II. It's entirely different than anything written in a book. So I think once man starts putting pen to paper, a lot of context gets pulled many different directions. So do I believe Jesus existed? Absolutely. Too many cultures wrote about him, and he never fired a weapon at anybody. So,
what cultures? What contemporaries wrote about him?
oh my goodness, where do we go? The Greeks, the Romans, the Kurds.
Hold on, real quick. Over on YouTube, Carlos, thank you so much for the 5 Cyber Deconstruction gifted memberships. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
But to me, the most important part of this, I think a lot of modern people miss today, young man, is that where they're pulling their information from, which is usually a King James Bible, is less than 60% of the original Bible.
Well, real quick, what I'm interested in are debates. So do you have an argument for the existence of Jesus?
All right, this is my argument for the existence of Jesus. My first argument would be don't believe the conventional Bible. That's number one. Number two, most
All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to.
Yeah, that's not an argument.
Hello,
Hello.
Kay. How you doing?
I'm alright.
And can I get your age?
Okay. I'm 27. Probably going to 28 this year, November.
All right. And are you a Christian?
Yes, I am.
All right. We are not. What is your strongest argument or evidence for the existence of Jesus?
All right. God bless you. So, I have to say something. I have to ask something first from you. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
my
Yeah.
God.
So, you believe Jesus actually existed, right?
Negative.
But
We
you
do
just
not. We're
put it there.
mythicists.
But you just put it there that he died and didn't come back.
I don't even believe he existed.
So why did you put it there that he died? Who told you
That
he
I
died?
called him a liar and a fraud?
Yeah. That he died. You
Oh,
actually
yeah,
say he
because
died,
it's
right?
provocative and it gets the people going.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and it's inside of your mythological book that you believe in. So we're just talking about an event that
All
occurs
right.
within the book that you believe is true.
All right. So the next thing, okay. Can I get the new assumption now? The new word that you said now. The new.
Can you just get to your argument instead of asking us redundant questions?
Okay, I'm really sorry, but I just, I was going based off the other argument, so I just need the new argument.
No, I have a different
Yeah.
argument with you.
Yeah. That's what I want to know. What's the name?
So do you have an argument?
Yeah. I can't see the question. That's why I'm on the main screen. I'm no longer on YouTube, so I can't see the question.
Yeah, the question was, do you have an argument for the existence of Jesus?
Oh, okay. That's it. Okay. So we do believe that. Okay, yeah. Let's go straight to the point. Do we believe the Old Testament? Does anybody believe the Old Testament?
I
Even
believe
though-
that there are some things in the Old Testament that are historically accurate. I believe there's some characters that actually existed. Do I believe in the supernatural stuff? No.
Okay. So what about the creation of the world? How do you see it?
I believe the universe has always existed, that we live in a cyclic universe as given due to the Deci study and backed up by the quantum eternity theorem. So I believe the universe is just cyclic and that the universe we live in is a naturalistic universe that we would just expect.
Great. That's awesome. That means you believe in a God, right? At least
No.
a God. You don't even
No.
believe in a God. No God.
No.
No God. Okay. Good. I love that. So we are saying we believe that there is a universe that existed in continuation, like an infinite how would I put it, like something that's going on forever, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it goes.
Okay.
It's cyclic. So it's cyclic. So it goes through a series of big bangs and big crunches.
Good.
Also, I hate to do this because it seems like I'm being a little rude here, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to understand how this is going to lead to proving that Jesus was a real person.
Okay, let's start. So, in my belief, you said you don't believe in God, right? Now let's.
You don't need to ask us questions. Just give us the argument.
All right. I'm sorry.
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
So this is my argument. There are two things that Christ is called. So Christ is called a seed. He was planted by God. He's a seed. That means he's a word. He's like a seed, like a word. he was planted, and he's called something else. He's called living water, right? He's called living water. So now look at the scenario of how these two things work
Well,
in the
hold on.
universe.
That's what the book says. What's the evidence that he existed, though?
What's the evidence that he existed, right?
Yeah, what's the evidence?
He's been asking you this question like 10 times. Yes.
This is the evidence he existed. He said he created the whole universe.
Well, that's the claim. What's the evidence?
Yeah. I'm trying to explain to you how he created it. So he said he created the whole universe.
No,
and we
you
said,
don't get. Stop. You don't get to go.
No.
Please stop. You don't get to go to the claim in the book to prove that the man existed.
Yeah, I'm not.
You're using the Bible.
Let's leave the book.
Yes.
Can we leave the
book? Yes.
Okay.
Leave the book and give us an argument for the existence of Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
Now, this is what I believe. You can listen to what I believe, right?
Cyber, I think this guest concussed himself, man. I don't know what's going on.
No, I'm just saying, can you listen?
What you need to do is provide me with evidence. Do you have evidence?
Okay, this is my evidence. Christ is a seed planted in the earth, dies. Every seed that is planted in the earth is dead, and rises up again. You do not see that seed coming back again, right? What do you see? You see a tree. That is the evidence. Now, the next part of the water. This is water.
Hold on. Let me run you through a syllogism real quick. I'm going to run you through it. Hold on. I'm going to run you through a syllogism real quick. Do you know what a syllogism is?
I don't know. What is that?
Okay. So my conclusion is going to be through Occam's razor, God is added baggage, God doesn't exist. So the conclusion to this syllogism is going to be time has always existed. Right?
Yeah.
So that's my conclusion. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you what are called premises. Now, you can argue with the premises, but you can't argue with the conclusion. So if the premises go through, the conclusion follows. If you can beat one of the premises, though, then the conclusion doesn't go through. Do you understand?
So in what way do you mean? Like, if I could...
so I have three. Yeah, so I'll just give you the three premises, and I'll ask you if you accept it or not. So premise one is all creation entails a change of states.
Yes.
Okay. The progression of one state, let me rephrase that. A change of states entails the progression from one state to another state.
Yeah.
You agree? Oh, you just got robotic. Hold on. You just got robotic. You try to say it again?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you again.
Can you hear me now?
So, yeah. So, a change of states entails a progression from one state to another. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. The progression of states is time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, with that, meaning time has always existed, meaning God didn't create time, we do know that through special and general relativity that time and space are intertwined. Time and space are the universe. Thus, the universe has always existed. The universe we live in today is exactly what we would expect through a naturalistic universe. Thus, God is added baggage. Thus, through Occam's razor, God isn't necessary. He's not needed. Added baggage. God doesn't exist. Boom.
So, okay, if you say things work in a time realm, so do you mean that the universe is going to keep developing and never go back to its start states? To the way it started?
You just need to argue with one of the premises. You just need to argue with the premise.
No, I'm just asking because you believe that. So definitely you understand it. So which means you know that once the time goes forward, it goes back to the old state it was. That is what time is, right?
Well, do you know? No. Do you know why the universe collapses?
Why does it collapse?
Are you familiar with the DESI study, the Dark Energy Spectroscope Instrument study?
No, not really. What is that?
Yeah, so the Big Bang is still happening, and it's dark
Okay.
energy that is causing the universe to expand. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard the term redshift?
The redshift?
Yeah,
Is
have you
that
ever heard
the-
redshift?
Is that the sun expanding?
The sun
What is that?
expanding? No. Redshift,
Okay.
anytime anything moves away from an object, it gives off a redshift. It's how we know that something's moving away. And depending on the
Yeah.
redshift, we can guesstimate its speed. So the redshift through the DESI study has been going on for about the last 6 years. Through the DESI study, we know that the universe the dark
Still
energy
expanding.
is starting to decelerate. Thus, over time, it'll stop and then it'll start to collapse in on itself. Once it collapses in on itself, it'll get to its smallest state. It'll have a rubber band effect. Thus, that'll cause the next Big Bang. And it's just a cyclic universe. It's always been doing
It'll
this.
cause the next Big Bang,
Yeah.
which means new Earth is gonna be created.
Yeah, potentially. We have no reason.
So
We have
why
no
do
other
you not-
universe.
So why do you not believe that when God says it? And
Oh,
why
because
do you not believe that? Because it says in the Bible.
because I just gave you a syllogism that you couldn't defeat with premises that would show that
just
a god
defeat-
is
I
not
just
necessary.
defeat- I
That's
just-
added baggage.
And there's
I
no
just
reference
defeated.
in scrip-
Wait. My bad.
There's no reference in scripture that states Cyber's position. Like, why are you trying to make it seem like the Bible agrees with Cyber's position?
It does, because what happens at the end? What happens at the end of the Revelation? It said,
Wait, hold on.
Create
What's
a
my
new-
position? What's my position?
your position is to prove if Christ is real or not, right?
No, hold on. My position
No.
is that because time space has always existed through the syllogism I just gave you, and
Yeah.
because time space has always existed, there is no
Yeah.
need for a god. It's unnecessary.
Okay, so if you said time has always existed, the time has always existed, right?
Yes, there's no god needed.
But the universe was not existing, right?
Say what?
Was the universe existing at the same time the time was existing?
Well, space-time is the universe.
Yeah, but was the universe existing when time was existing?
Yes, space-time is the
So you don't believe in the
universe.
Big Bang? You don't believe in the Big Bang?
Yeah, I do believe in the Big Bang. I believe the universe is
Yeah.
cyclic. It goes through big
Can-
bangs and big crunches.
I know
Can,
it goes. I know. it
Here,
goes
let
everywhere.
me hold on. Let me help you out here because I don't think you have the boots for this hike. So let me help you out here real quick. I just sent. So I had that last guy that was up, and that guy just sent them over to the Video Ninja chat for Reason and Rebellion. I just sent them over there in broadcast mode, so they're going to be able to have a nice chat over there.
Oh yeah. I was just about to ask him, can he tell us what the Big Bang is? Because I really don't think he knows what it is.
I don't think he does, which I almost feel bad. Like, so my goal here is, like, if people genuinely don't know something, I'm not going to give a physics class. Like, it's not my job to give them a class on it, but I'm also not going to, like, keep them up here and just embarrass them. I think that's disingenuous. Now, if they want to give me some ridiculous pushback, then I'll embarrass them. I have no problem doing that, but I just don't think he has the boots for the hike.
Agreed.
But I'm gonna go check out the Reason and Rebel. I'm gonna go look over in that chat room real quick. See if they're still. Oh no, they left. I'm like, maybe they're still in there. But let's go. I'm gonna go back over to TikTok. You want to hop over there? I think I might have some people over there in guest boxes.
Yeah, for sure. I'll hop on there.
Oh, let me get the sound here fixed. All right, we're bringing Hooper on over, if Hooper's still there. Hey, Hooper, how you doing? Are you there, Hooper?
Oh shit! I think we hear some snoring.
Oh, hold on. I think I got this. We're gonna go add. Gonna look up. Look up all results. Okay, let's see if this wakes him up. We'll see. Oh, it didn't do the whole thing. This is maybe this one. Hooper, are you there? I don't think he's here. I think he went to sleep.
The Lord took him.
Yeah, he got naptured. I crack myself up with some of the stupid stuff I say. I wish I could get naptured.
I mean, you can, but spiritual eyes for that to happen. So.
Oh no, this is naptured with an NAP, nap. I don't know if you get naptured. Like, do you have like debates spiritually?
Yeah, your spirit is debating people without you knowing.
Without you knowing, that is hilarious. Anyways, I am going to call it a night, though. I appreciate you coming on up. Again, everybody go follow Reason and Rebellion. Tomorrow night, Jaren and I will be live on that one. And tomorrow I will be, let me go double check the Discord. Make sure I'm not giving out bum times here, but I will be live tomorrow at about tomorrow I will be live at about 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time with my friend Emily from Emily Talks. Those of you on YouTube might know or might not. People here on TikTok might know if you hang out in the LGBTQIA plus spaces. She is trying to get into religious debates. So I will be debating with her. She's a friend of mine. She's going to be co-hosting with me tomorrow. And with that said, Knight, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I'll just leave it with thank you for having me up, and I hope you have a good night and a good
Yep.
stream tomorrow.
And let's all say a little prayer to sweet baby Cthulhu, and hope that his account gets unbeamed with a swiftness. Hopefully he'll win any appeals. May Baphomet bless your future lives, that they go well and you continue to crush the opposition. Anyways, I'm going to drop you down. You have a fantastic evening, and I will see you all tomorrow. I'll still be going tomorrow again. I'll be live on this account again around noon Mountain Standard Time, and then I'll be live on Reason and Rebellion at 9 Mountain Standard Time. And you all have a fantastic evening.
Secret texts, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth.